Alright, y'all, come kill my summer garden with me. So, despite some snafus with overwatering, that seems to have stunted and killed these, for the most part, my Thai peppers and even the Carolina Reapers there were doing pretty good. So too were my pickling cucumbers and my dill. I also made some wasp friends who made such a nice nest that they might as well be charging rent for that. Holy shit, look at that thing. But on the other side of the house, I also had these tomatoes, which again, I very much was done with watering them, so they all got kind of hit by some rot. But despite that, they continued producing. But yeah, I'm not good with figuring out how to water stuff, clearly. And yet, they did persist. And as I was thinking about the whole, the difference between harvest festivals, right, in the north of Europe and the south, right, we got Lammas and Lughnasadh in more the north, and we have the Feast of the Assumption on August 15th, more in the south. I was wondering why a warmer climate will have a later harvest festival. Oh, and these are some green tomatoes I took from a plant that died last year, and actually they started turning yellow all on their own, but it took like a good month and a half. So if you're wondering why I'm taking all these tomatoes off while they're still green, it's because if this is any indication, then these green ones will eventually ripen on their own too. Apparently tomatoes can't ripen if it's under 60 degrees and above 80, and it's been above 80 pretty frequently, but they are starting to turn, so I don't doubt that they'll turn in the house. But back to the summer festivals. So I'm sitting here on August 9th, pretty much a week in between the 1st and the 15th. And I'm doing this today because I am about 70 days out from when I'm expected to get my first frost. So if I want to plant my, fall garden, I gotta do it now, and that means I gotta pull up all of these plants. And that's when it made sense. That is when it clicked as to why a warmer climate's going to have a later harvest festival. Because they have a longer growing season and their frost doesn't come as quickly, so they get that extra 2 weeks of growth and getting more produce versus a colder climate that has to pull it all out faster so they can get more of those fall time crops in there. Also, damn, my tomatoes made some nice roots. Because after harvesting the amount of fucking tomatoes I harvested in here, I understand the whole concept of harvest festival too, because damn. I didn't think 6 tomato plants could make all of that, while actively being blighted. But now I'm just turning all that soil over, so the sun can kind of hit all the icky parts and maybe, sanitize a little bit. And then it's off to picking all these peppers. I left the basil in there, even though I will have to take that down soon, and also found a little bee friend who seems to have just been taking a rest. These guys are starting to die a little bit towards the end of the season too, but she did fly away on her own after. But yeah, the basil I left in the big raised bed just because I'm going to use that to make some pad thai today, especially with all these peppers. And speaking of peppers, damn, I have 2 Carolina Reaper plants, and this is the only pepper I managed to grow. I've been trying to grow these from scratch just for years and years. I mean, technically I have 2, but that one doesn't count. But they don't do well in this weather. They make a lot of flowers, but they don't hold on to them. So I only have 1 friggin' pepper. I just wanted to know what they taste like fresh, honestly. But the cucumbers too and the dill, they're about spent. I got enough cucumbers to make 6 jars of pickles, which is pretty cool. And there's just a couple little ones left, so I don't know, I'll take those as a snack, but the rest of them gotta go. Later on, I'm probably going to pull up all the basil or just, take this sickle to it like I'm taking to the dill right now. And maybe I'll just put them in a cup of water or something so they stay kind of fresh for a little bit while longer, but otherwise, it's about done. I've made pad thai several times this year at this point because we had a lot of Thai basil. I just used some different hot peppers. But now that I got hot peppers and basil at the same time, that's pretty much my harvest festival meal, is pad thai, because I love it. Also, the fucking chipmunks stole all the corn and everything that I was throwing outside and planted it in my pepper pots, so I found a lot of corn and peas and other seeds just sprouting in those pots. That was interesting. Nonetheless, as we have this kind of death and rebirth cycle, right, as I titled this video, while it is sad to have to pull up what look like perfectly healthy, happy plants, the reality is that it's better to pull things up and then have time and room to start something new again than it is to, just let things go until they fall over and die and then have no time to do anything else either. The cycle of life and death continues whether or not you feel bad for the plants, for yourself, or anyone else. But these peas I soaked in water a bit beforehand just so I could, not have those scrungly, hard, dry peas in there, and what we're working with for our fall garden are all of these things. I was talking about all this with my mom too, where it seems like everything in life, whether it be something man-made like a business or whether it just be a plant, they have a life and death cycle. They start young. They could get toppled by any number of factors, They grow, they thrive, and then they start to wilt and become an eyesore. And people, I think, get too sentimental where they think that things they make are going to last forever, and they don't realize that, no, you do have to kind of cut things down, even when it looks like they still got some life left in them, because otherwise you're going to miss the next season and the next cycle. The one thing you're so proud of growing is going to steal up all those resources in your pots, in your fields, and then they will still eventually die whether you want them to or not. Learning how to kind of detach from that, and, as much as it's sad to rip up all of the hard work of the summer season, it's worth learning to then pull it up and make room for the fall season. Same with, honestly, I could say jobs, same with, seasons of life, right? Our own lives, same with any other kind of stuff you can think of. It all follows this cycle where it starts really interestingly, goes really well, and eventually has to come to an end. Chapters must come to a close. When I started gardening, I was really reluctant to have to tear up things even when they were still making fruits and everything was still looking good. But once I started doing the fall gardening too, I realized, it's better to get a bunch of many different things than it is to just keep hoping that the one thing you've got is going to keep producing forever. So it's at this point in the garden where we're not just starting something new like we are in the, late spring, but we're saying goodbye to one thing and then beginning another, which makes it bittersweet, not the same as just starting fresh in the spring. But it also makes a time of the good harvest, where we can look back at all the stuff we did well, all the fruits of our labor, and enjoy those while we wait for the next fruits to start going. But goddamn, now I'm exhausted and I need to take a nap.